All right, go ahead.
Okay, well, it was in the 1960, it was in 65, somewhere around in that area there. We had the Cambria Mobile, we had one tow truck, and it was a 41 International. Dad bought it out in Easton out there, the wrecking yard. And it was just a beat up one that was out there that they used in the wrecking yard. And he bought it, I don't know, for like $300, and they drove it over to Cambria. And back in those days, your county work crews worked out of each county. It was not ODOT or YDOT or any of those things there. Each county had their own road crews. So these were all drinking buddies of Dad's. So what they did, they took it down where they were doing. Chewy, get out of the way.
Come on.
Chewy.
Come on. Keep talking in the camera, Dad.
They took it down to. They took it down to the when they were fixing the bridges on Highway 1, and they had all of their equipment down there, so they sandblasted the whole truck. They just sandblasted every bit of it, and then the railings were all white, so then they painted the whole car white, the whole truck white, everything was painted white, and then they went in and scraped off the mirrors and stuff like that. Of course, it was on the weekend and everybody was drinking, and so they were mostly all drunk when they did it and everything. But anyway, because Dad was offered a 3A towing contract, and 3A towing contract called for white trucks with the blue and decals and everything for Southern California. Southern California was white trucks, and they thought it was.
I see bacon right there.
So, anyway, it was a little bit later on that they had a
They don't have French fries this time of the day.
No, it's too early.
It's too
concert. I
early.
guess a concert, a hippie gathering or a concert up by Big Sur up there,
And you had waffles.
and they advertised it in San Francisco at Haight-Ashbury and Southern California and everything. And one of the biggest problems we had over there on Highway 1 was
That was you.
people
Hey,
would,
hey guys, we're filming over here. Can we keep it down so that way Dad doesn't have to talk loud?
Tell us a little more. You need to be
Can we get it downstairs? Because I don't want him to blow his voice out too early.
Want a banana?
Keep going. Had a concert up there.
so they advertised it, and so they all started showing up all over the place, and they wound up just hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of these hippies showing up in all different kinds of vehicles, and mostly bugs and beetles and vans and stuff like that. And then so what happened was they were parking. It was just out in the fields where it was kind of like the Woodstock was. They just had a big field out there they were going to have it in, and they would just park it along the highway on Highway 1. Well, Highway 1 was back in those days is a very narrow highway, and so the Highway Patrol, California Highway Patrol, and the Sheriff's Department would keep going back and forth up the road and tell the people that they couldn't park on the road if their tires were on the road, any on the blacktop, that their cars would be towed and everything. So, we had the one tow truck, and then the Chevron station downtown had a tow truck, and so the one down in Moore Bay had one too. Cayucas had one, and so they. What was his name? California Highway Patrol was a real good friend of ours, and he told us, he says, what we'll do, we just want you guys to come up there, and we will just call you in, and if there's a car there, we want you to tow it off and tow it back to town. He says, okay. So Ray Adams was his name. Anyway, Dad went up there because we only had the one tow truck, and it was probably 50 miles or 60 miles up there where it was from Cambria, north of Cambria, And so Dad went up there, and I stayed there working at the service station. And so when they got up there was just hundreds of cars that were parked everywhere. And so people were getting out and saying, "Ah, you can't get, they can't tow us all. You know, they're not gonna be able to tow us all and everything." So they just said, grab whichever ones you want and tow them back down there. Well, Dad, since it was so far for us to tow them, Dad took one of the friends of his that had a restaurant there in Gorda, and had a piece of property there. And so what he did, he would get a truck, he would go up and get a car, and he would pull it down there and hook it there back behind the ranch here so nobody could see it, and then he would go back up and get another one. So instead of getting maybe 5 or 6 cars, he'd get about 35 or 40 cars, because and then when the concert was over and the people were all leaving and everything, then he would hook them back up, and then one at a time he would take them back down to the station. We would park them behind the station back down there and everything, and so he made a lot of money off of that, because we could charge at the time we were charging $1 a mile or $1.50 a mile if we had to dolly it. If it was like a stick shift, you could just tow it, you know, in neutral. But if it was a automatic or something, you had to dolly it. So it was really good money back in those days that he was getting all that stuff. And then a lot of them, and Dad was always thinking ahead of time. So he wouldn't go in there if there was an old beat up Volkswagen there that had hippie stuff painted all over it and everything, you know, or there was a nice car right next to it. He would pull a nice car. He wouldn't pull the Volkswagen, because the odds are that whoever had the car was going to pay more, would pay for having the car picked up, you know, or release the car. And then there again too, we used to get $1 a day for storage too. So he wound up with a whole bunch of those. And then another interesting part of that too was Willis Warren had a ranch out just the other side of what was that? Not Petersburg, it's San Simeon Creek, just past San Simeon Creek Road. He turned back off up there, and he had a nice cattle ranch up there and everything. And so he was another one of Dad's good drinking buddies and everything. And so Dad and them got along real good. And then this was right when President Johnson was president, and Lady Bird Johnson was doing a program called Make America, Beautify America, or Make America Great Again, or something. Clean Up America, or one of these things like this. We're gonna clean the American highways, get all this stuff off. Well, what you have to realize is Cambria is about halfway between San Francisco and Los Angeles, and so what happens is the hippies would steal cars, you know, out of Santa Barbara and all these different places, and they would drive up there, up into Monterey County there, and then on Highway 1 they'd strip them out. They'd take everything that was worth anything, they'd strip them out, and starters, generators, and all that kind of stuff and everything. And so they